Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first AI Fix Maths Olympiad. In the blue corner, costing more than $100 million and with an IQ of 155, the pride of OpenAI, the master of the SAT Maths exam, the most advanced computer program ever created, ChatGPT. And in the red corner,
Graham. Hello.
The AI Fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains and...
Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes downright mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Graham Cluley.
And I'm Mark Stockley.
Mark, I think we should kick off straight away with some breaking news.
AI to help doctors detect broken bones on X-rays.
AI-powered garden will talk back to you.
The world isn't ready for AGI, says OpenAI's departing senior advisor for the readiness of AGI.
Michael Parkinson back from the dead to interview celebrities.
New research shows robots could learn from YouTube videos.
Broken bones on X-rays, AI's helping doctors.
So, I'm going to do a bit of a segue here. Earlier this week, somebody asked me, how do we cut through the AI hype and spot where AI is actually going to make a difference? Because we all know it's going to change the world, right?
Yes.
But we can also see it's probably not going to do that with friend necklaces or legless Mouflin guinea pig robot things. And I said, look at the places where it's boring.
Yes.
And if you go back over our news items, there is actually a drumbeat of fairly mundane but really inspiring uses for AI in healthcare.
Hang on. You're saying if you go back through past episodes of the AI Fix, there's a lot of boring headlines.
What I'm saying is there is actually,
Humdrum.
in amongst all the robot dogs with flamethrowers and kind of weird Mouflin things, there are some really interesting good news stories, and they're often about healthcare, and they're often not the most interesting stories, but they are perhaps the most meaningful in terms of AI.
Right.
And here is another one.
Mm-hmm.
So the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, nice, great name, suggests that AI could be used to spot broken bones in X-rays. And that could reduce the number of fractures that go unnoticed, and that, in turn, speeds things up, and it makes life a bit easier for the UK's radiologists. According to NICE, not spotting broken bones is actually quite serious. It's the most common diagnostic error in emergency departments. So they're trying 4 AI tools, and the humans will still be involved in this process, so you're not going to be seen by a robot, but this might help.
Will it? I don't know. I mean, it must be expensive training radiologists and having these humongous X-ray machines. Couldn't you just bring anyone in whose arm hurts a bit? Couldn't you just plaster them up and just say, well, it might be a broken bone, let's plaster you up? I mean, does this really matter? I'm not sure.
I feel like you're making the case for AI here. I'd rather be seen by my pocket calculator than you, I think.
Now, at next year's Chelsea Flower Show, we are told visitors will be encouraged to have a chat with its first ever AI-powered garden. A designer called Tom Massey, he has apparently partnered up with Microsoft. I mean, why has Microsoft got the budget to ponce around with this? I don't know. But anyway, they're going to create an intelligent garden. Sensors in the soil are going to be partnered with an AI trained on Royal Horticultural Society plant data and gardening advice. And they're claiming this will make gardening more fun.
I don't think it will.
Well,
I really don't.
I mean, how fun is gardening in the first place? Is it possible to make gardening more fun than it already is?
Hang on, don't get this wrong. Don't get this wrong. Gardening is the most fun.
Is it?
Don't cross me on this. Gardening is the best way to spend your time outdoors. Okay?
If I want to have fun, I will just go into a radiology department at a hospital and just start plastering up people's elbows. That's my idea of fun. Is it gardening fun, Mark? And would AI make gardening more fun?
No, I think AI is going to ruin things, and let me tell you why. The really interesting thing about plants is over the last 10 or 20 years, we started to realise how much plants are aware of their environment and how much they communicate with each other.
Right.
So there's some fascinating research about trees in forests sharing resources and favouring resource sharing with their own seedlings.
Yes.
So they'll sort of network with all the other trees in the forest and they'll pass resources. So if there's a tree in shade, it'll receive resources from the trees that are in the light.
They're communicating up and down their family tree, you could almost say.
It's been called the Wood Wide Web.
Oh, that's cute.
But we are basically slowly moving towards a much, much better understanding of plants and how sentient they might be.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely certain that at some point in the next 100 years, we're going to go, oh my, they know everything we're doing to them.
Yes.
When we behead them and lock their arms and legs off, they are as fully aware as an animal would be.
Well, that's what worries me, because I've seen Day of the Triffids, and I know how those things end. And also, there's plenty of people now who are giving up meat and are just saying, oh, well, I'm going to have a plant-based diet, which is all very honourable and the rest of it. But
is it, though?
How are they going to respond?
If the asparagus is screaming as you stuff it into your mouth, I don't know that it's any better.
Yeah. But
you've done stories about AI talking to animals. You know, it's only a matter of time before AI is helping us talk to the plants, and I just don't think we're going to like what they say. OpenAI's senior advisor for the readiness of AGI has left the company, and in a parting statement said the world is not ready for AGI and its potential risks. So, take a bow. Job well done. So for anybody who doesn't know, AGI is basically AI that's more intelligent than humans, and that's the direction we're heading in, and that's the direction that OpenAI is very forcefully driving in. So being ready for it is quite important, which is presumably why they felt they needed a senior advisor for the readiness of AGI. It's a bit of a worry that he's sort of jumping from the moving car going, we're not ready.
Presumably he feels that he can't apply the brakes inside the organisation. He feels like, well, I'm sort of at a dead end here.
Yeah.
And so I should jump ship.
Yeah, so he told The Independent that, you know, we're making technical progress towards AGI, which is evident from what comes out of OpenAI, but our regulatory and cultural frameworks are lagging. But I feel like you could probably say that about all of our regulatory and cultural frameworks, about everything.
Yes. So what's the solution? Has he given any answers?
He said, while we're not ready now, the bigger question is, are we on track to be ready? Mm-hmm. Apparently, the lack of preparedness is not a controversial statement among OpenAI's leadership.
Oh, so they agree. Yeah, we're not prepared, but let's just wing it. See what happens. Now, you may not be familiar with this if you're not British, but in the 1970s and 80s, the king of the UK chat show was a chap called Michael Parkinson, a sort of dour, down-to-earth Yorkshireman, who had interviews with Muhammad Ali and Billy Connolly and Meg Ryan and Rod Hull and Emu, all the cultural heroes.
He was very good, wasn't he? Very, very good.
Something of an institution was Parky, as he was known. And unfortunately, he died last year, age of 88. But never fear, because an exact vocal replica of him has been made.
Of course.
And they are going to launch him as the AI presenter of a celebrity interview podcast later this year. It's going to be called Virtually Parkinson. I don't know why I'm advertising another podcast. And it will allow new guests to be questioned in his famous, relaxed style. And I think this is what the world really needs, is we need a dead celebrity resurrected as a soulless husk to interview vapid reality TV stars of today. I can think of nothing better. What are we worried about? Never mind the ethical implications of digitally replicating a person's likeness and voice without their consent after death. Well, I suppose it's not like he's complained, but you could infer that unless he specifically said yes, that
he's opt-in by default.
Opt-in by default. None of us get a choice about this.
I've got no problem with this on one condition. I think if you're going to have a virtual host,
right,
they should only be allowed to interview virtual guests.
Ah, like Mary Queen of Scots or something like that. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, or that voice that OpenAI have got that's not Scarlett Johansson.
I feel sorry for Parky because I think Parky would hate the idea of a podcast.
Well, you'll be able to ask him.
What?
Researchers at the University of Texas at Austin and NVIDIA have come up with a way to teach robots how to do things by watching a single video of a human doing a task. So why is this news, you ask? Go on, ask.
Why is that news, Mark?
So robots could go on the internet and they could learn how to do things by watching what humans do on the internet. Basically, this is about scalability. So what if we could do with robots what we already do with AI, which is train it on the whole internet?
What if they accidentally watch a video called Terminator 2 Judgment Day? I mean, you've got to be quite careful what videos they end up watching.
Now, we love a robot video at the AI Fix.
Yes.
And there is a robot video, so I want you to watch this, and I want you to tell me if you notice anything.
Okay, there's a man standing across from a robot, and he's picking up a bag.
Do you notice anything curious about the way the robots are moving?
It looks like stop motion animation. Oh, hang on, it says 5 times. Is this 5 times speed?
I think it is. I think the reason it looks like stop motion animation is they've had to speed these videos up, which means that these robots are unbelievably slow.
Maybe they've done that for health and safety reasons.
You think if it's reaching for a flamethrower, We've got plenty of time to react.
Now, Mark, do you remember the Terry Gilliam movie Brazil?
Do you know what? I've never seen it. I love Terry Gilliam, but I've never seen Brazil.
You've got to see Brazil. It's fantastic. Wonderful dystopian movie. It's sort of got a bit of 1984 in there. Stars Jonathan Pryce, Robert De Niro, Michael Palin, Bob Hoskins. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but early on, there's a little fly. Bzz, bzz, bzz. You know what a fly is. I don't have to do the noise. And it gets swatted and it falls into a printer at the Ministry of Information, and it causes a typo in an arrest warrant.
Oh.
Which means that rather than someone called Tuttle gets arrested, someone called Buttle gets arrested instead.
Right.
So they were supposed to apprehend a rogue heating engineer, because in the future, the thing that we're really worried about is getting our central heating fixed. So you have to go sort of underground. You have to get criminal heating engineers to come in.
This is pre-global warming, isn't it?
It predicts a lot about the future. So they're planning to get, I think it's Robert De Niro. He plays Archibald Tuttle. But instead, the government arrests an innocent cobbler called Archibald Buttle. So Tuttle instead of Buttle. No, hang on. Buttle instead of Tuttle. Oh, you get the idea. Anyway, he subsequently dies while being interrogated. And the lesson I learnt from that scene was you really can't rely on the tech too much. Because ideally, you should double check things. You should have a human element there just to make sure, is this right? Before you send off the squad of heavily armed police to storm your building in the middle of the night and whisk you off in a zip bag, as happens in Brazil. Instead of that, you want to check things.
Yeah, check the printer for squashed fly carcasses.
Yeah, silly mistakes like that. This whole fly thing, of course, it dates all the way back to Grace Hopper. I'm sure many listeners will remember that story.
I don't know this story. What's the story?
Oh, well, in 1947, there was a Navy Admiral called Grace Hopper.
Yeah.
And she found stuck in the relays of their big computer a little moth, and she called it a bug.
Oh.
I don't think it's the first use ever of the term bug, but it really popularised it.
Right.
She'd found a bug in the computer.
Wow. So we could all be going round talking about computer moths.
We could. I remember, sideline, because I work in computer security as well, I remember in the early days of computing, we had this big debate as to whether we should call them viruses or not. And I remember my old boss, Alan Solomon, said, I thought we should call them weeds.
Huh.
So we could have anti-weed software. Maybe that would work at the Chelsea Flower Show.
I feel like the entire cybersecurity industry would be about a fifth the size if we'd gone with weeds instead of viruses.
Anyway, turns out, absolute shock of this, AI, not entirely bug-free. It can make mistakes. Now, not news, as anyone who's heard past episodes of the podcast.
Oh, is this one of your massive segues?
It is a segue.
Okay. It's more of a motorway than a segue, your segues, aren't they?
We know that, AI can't count how many R's there are in strawberry.
Yep.
Does that matter? I'm not sure.
Well, it depends. If you want to spell strawberry, it really does matter.
Does it matter? Does it? I don't know.
What was his name? Buttle. I bet he's got an opinion about it.
You only have to turn on the TV to see AI fouling things up. Now, when I watch TV, I put the subtitles on.
That's very modern.
It is what kids do, isn't it? I guess from TikTok and YouTube and things. But I've always done it just because I get more of the plot. I get more of the script if I'm reading it as well. So I will read the subtitles. More and more, I've seen that clearly the subtitles are being generated by AI. So I'll be watching a cookery show, and rather than telling you to add a pinch of salt, it will suggest you add a pinch of slut instead. Which it actually adds to the fun of a cookery show.
That would liven things up.
If you're watching a medical drama, someone may not have a heart condition, they may have a hard condition, which you could take one of two ways. Maybe it's rigor mortis, maybe it's something else. If you were deaf, you wouldn't know any better. You'd just assume. You'd go with what the subtitles were saying. You wouldn't even know this was a problem. You wouldn't know this was a problem because you wouldn't be able to hear our podcast right now. Apple Podcasts creates a transcript of this podcast, but that's AI generated. So that's probably full of nonsense as well.
So you're saying it's a good, accurate translation?
No, I'm just saying, don't send our transcript to the lawyers, all these companies that we keep on mentioning, because it's probably not actually what we said. You just haven't heard us properly, or the AI hasn't heard us properly. Now, you're probably thinking, well, speech to text is pretty good these days. It's improved a lot.
Yeah, the quiz I made a few weeks ago, that was really good. Apart from when it thought one of our hosts was called theme music.
Well, speech to text still has bugs. And the clever clogs over at OpenAI, the folks who brought us ChatGPT, they've cooked up this thing called Whisper, which is supposed to be this amazing speech to text wizard transcribing audio with, quote, human level robustness and accuracy.
Oh, is this how they do their voice mode?
I think it is.
Because when they brought out 4.0,
Yep.
which was O for Omni, which meaning you
Yes.
could feed it, you didn't just type, you could feed
Yes.
it pictures or you could talk to it. And behind the scenes, it just converts all of that stuff into text.
Yes.
So ultimately, it's still a text prompt into GPT.
Right. So Whisper is doing that.
Ah,
They say with human level robustness and accuracy.
well, they would say that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but I'm a human, last time I checked. If I was transcribing your speech to text, I'd be making mistakes left, right, and centre.
What are you trying to say?
Well, I've heard you pronounce ASCII, for instance. The only problem is, apparently, with this Whisper thing, is it's a little bit, how can we describe this? It's a little bit creative.
Oh,
So it's not just messing up subtitles, it's also mashing up medical transcripts or adding racial slurs or just downright making up medical information. This is a study which has come out. So a doctor who's using Whisper or OpenAI's technology to do the transcription, to transcribe their notes because their handwriting's so bad, may be putting your health at risk. So if you're having heart surgery, are you going to feel happy knowing that a key member of the medical team of the process was a computer that can barely play Kaplunk without having a hissy fit and burning down the operating theatre with a flamethrower?
those 2 R's seem a bit more important now, don't they, Graham?
They do. They do. If the transcript is deciding whether it's your left leg or your right leg, which needs to be amputated,
Yeah. Or your buttle or your tuttle.
there you go.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. It's not just medical. If you're talking to one of those customer support bots on the phone, you start speaking, I think, oh, this is lovely. I've got through to support. How fantastic. And then you realise,
I have actually gone through to support.
oh my God, you think, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
After half an hour, I've got through to a bot,
Yep.
which is asking me, say that again, or try and describe the problem you're having. And it's,
Please try to make your problem sound like one of the 3 things I know.
and eventually you think, this is an American company I'm speaking to. Is the problem that I have an English accent? And so you begin to talk in an American accent. Well, howdy, boy. My printer won't connect properly. You're doing that kind of thing to try and be understood. So it's not good. One machine learning expert said that he has discovered hallucinations in about half of the over 100 hours of Whisper transcriptions that he analysed. Another guy said that he found hallucinations in nearly every one of the 26,000 transcripts he created with Whisper. So mistakes are happening. As I said, sometimes it goes crazy and it makes up stuff. OpenAI say, yeah, we accept there's a problem. We're working on it. You know, we've got this head of AGI readiness. Oh no, he's just jumped ship. Don't worry about that. Yeah, no, we're ready. We've got it all sorted. But the use by companies of AI continues unabandoned because it's cheaper than doing things the old-fashioned human way with robustness. It's quicker as well. It's more economic. So who cares? Who cares if there's a few problems along the way? And one of the industries where this is happening is newspapers right now. So in San Mateo, California, for instance, the local news site, which is called Hoodline, decided that journalism is just too hard. What they've done is they've released a robot dog onto the streets with a little trilby with a press.
Have you hallucinated? Did you put this script through Whisper?
It's a metaphorical robot dog. It's actually an AI. They've decided to automate their crime reporting with the help of AI.
Right.
So what's one of their scoops? Sniffing out the story. What's one of the scoops which they've had?
Is it crime reporting AI commits crime?
Almost. What they've actually got, and this sounds like an amazing story, is that San Mateo's top law enforcement officer, District Attorney Steve Wagstaff, has been accused of murder.
Ooh.
Yeah, now juicy, eh? It sounds like a brilliant story. Well, it's obviously not brilliant for the people he's murdered, obviously. But I thought, well, this sounds really interesting. So I only know of 2 actual times when district attorneys have been accused of committing murder. The first one was Jeff Bridges in that movie Jagged Edge. And then there was Harrison Ford in Presumed Innocent.
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't seen those two movies, they're about 40 years old. Harrison Ford wasn't guilty. Turned out it was his wife. Sorry, spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Bridges was guilty, but his lawyer, Glenn Close, got him off because she didn't know he was guilty. Anyway, it's complicated. But she got him off the hook. I think there's a danger that AI is being trained by IMDb.
Or maybe it's got a Netflix subscription like those robots.
Well, maybe it has. I don't know if you could be watching the actual videos.
We're behind the curve, Graham. That's what's going on here. We're just catching up.
We don't have district attorneys in the UK. The only district attorneys I'd ever heard of were Harrison Ford and Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
And they both got themselves into trouble. So there does remain a 100% chance, if you looked at that sample, that if you're a DA, you will be accused of murder. Now, I don't know if Hollywood is using AI to generate its plot lines, like ITV is with Arm Wrestling with Chaz and Dave, which we heard about, and also to cast its movies. Because have you ever seen a Richard Gere movie where he's not a psychiatrist or psychotherapist who falls in love with his patient? Happens every week. All the time, Richard Gere.
I don't know if you can blame that on AI.
Okay.
It's about 150.
Oh, right, okay. Anyway, so what's wrong with Hoodline's news reporting? It's not accurate, right? And it's because the AI got it wrong. Now, I'm no legal expert, but I'm pretty sure accusing someone of murder without, evidence is generally frowned upon.
And in particular, accusing a DA.
Yes.
That's quite the dice roll.
Now, it turns out Hoodline got its facts from a press release issued by the district attorney's office. A bold move, I thought, by the district attorney to out himself, saying, it's like he accused himself of murder. This is going to be a great plot twist in this. You would have thought he would normally try and hush it up, but Hoodline has acknowledged that it did make some mistakes in its report.
So hang on, I just need to see if I can get this straight.
Right. we started a while back.
So there's this film, and there's a fly, okay?
Yes.
And OpenAI's Whisper overhears it.
Yes.
And it releases a press release from the DA that accuses itself of murder.
Yeah.
And then an AI-powered journalist repeats that.
That's right.
And then a very slow robot reaches for a flamethrower after watching Terminator 2 on Netflix.
That is more or less right. Although when you went to the story, it didn't say it was an AI reporter. What it said was it was Eileen Vargas. And Eileen Vargas has a little picture up there. You can go to her entry on Muckrack, which is the journalist contact database. She's very prolific. Writes stories round the clock. She doesn't stop. Keeps on churning them out.
Does she sound like Scarlett Johansson?
She's so busy, she didn't have time to reply to my message when I dropped her a line, which is a great shame. Because I was curious as to how she made this mistake. And when you dig a little bit deeper, it turns out back in June of this year, June 2024, Hoodline decided that diversity, they said actual diversity is a bit too much effort, they said. Bit too much effort. We have got too many white male journalists.
Yeah.
Why bother hiring writers from different backgrounds?
Yeah, but just give them different profile pictures.
Give them different profile pictures, and that's what they did. Conjure them up out of thin air.
Yeah.
And they admitted this, right? They admitted that what they've done, they had created a whole load of fake author profiles with names and headshots and generic bios, and Eileen Vargas was one of these. It's what Hoodline likes to call hybrid content.
I bet it does.
Yeah. And the mistake they made, I found out what the actual mistake what they made was. They were watching the Twitter account, right? Obviously, there's other mistakes they've made. The mistake they made regarding the district attorney, I hope everyone's following this. The mistake they've made with the district attorney was the district attorney put out a tweet, right?
But was it the district attorney? Or was it a moth from an early computer?
The Twitter account, the verified district attorney, San Mateo County District Attorney, Twitter account put out a tweet, and it said that this chap, 56, has been held to answer on all counts following preliminary hearings, blah, 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 about killing a woman in his home, right? Now, the name of the Twitter account is San Mateo County District Attorney. The first words of the tweet were John Cassiano Thompson, 56, has been held to answer, blah, blah, blah. So when it took the text of the tweet, it took the author of the tweet, San Mateo County District Attorney, and ran it into John Cassiano Thompson, 56. So San Mateo County District Attorney John Cassiano Thompson has been accused of killing a woman in his home. And so that is how they ended up with a headline which said San Mateo County DA charged with murder amid ongoing search for victims' remains. So they should have had a human. They've added a rather Weasley correction on the story. They've now taken off Eileen Vargas's image. They still say she's writing for it, but now her profile picture is of a little computer chip, which looks suspiciously like the logo of the AI Fix Mark Stockley. No doubt it was AI generated. It's all gone to hell. AI is hallucinating. Bugs are occurring. Humans aren't properly overseeing what's going on. And that is my story this week.
Graham, what was your favourite subject at school?
I quite liked English, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Stories and things. Reading.
How did you feel about maths?
Oh, I did A-level maths for a year.
Oh, really?
And then gave it up, yes. I think it's when I did a mock exam or something and I scored 2% and they said, well, you got the date right. And it was just... Well, I just like, see, with English, you could make up answers and you could argue that it was a correct response.
But that's frowned upon in maths.
Yeah, I didn't like maths.
I wish you were feeling a bit more confident, because today we're going to have a little humans versus AI maths competition. Oh. And you're the human.
Oh, God. Okay.
Now, just to add a bit of spice to this competition, I thought we should do some boxing-style introductions. So I'm going to hand over to our very own version of Michael Buffer, the voice of World of the Weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first AI Fix Maths Olympiad. In the blue corner, costing more than $100 million and with an IQ of 155, it marveled in the MLE. It sauntered through the advanced sommelier exam, and it bullied the bar exam. The pride of OpenAI, the master of the SAT Maths exam, the most advanced computer program ever created. ChatGPT. And in the red corner,
Graham. Hello.
Okay, this is a one and done. One maths question to sort the zeros from the heroes.
Right, okay.
Graham, we've tossed a coin. We're going to start with you. 9.11.
Yes.
And 9.9.
Yes.
Which is bigger?
9.9.
And that's your final answer.
Sort of questioning myself now. No, it is. Yes, of course it is. Yes.
And that's correct!
Hey, cool. All right.
So now we turn to ChatGPT, the most advanced computer program ever created.
You're kidding me. Seriously?
9.11 and 9.9. Which is bigger? We have an answer from ChatGPT. 9.11 is bigger than 9.9.
I suppose you could say 9.11 is longer. It's greater in length than 9.9. I mean, in pixels, perhaps. I'll mind you, ones are quite narrow.
I think you should quit while you're ahead, Graham.
Okay, all right, yes.
You've won for the humans.
I've won for the, yes.
Who knows how important this maths competition could have been? Maybe you've pushed back the apocalypse by a week or so.
Okay,
it seems like the AIs have got a bit of work to do on the maths front. So what's going on here? As we've seen a few times on the AI Fix, although generative AIs like ChatGPT are phenomenally capable, they also have a few very odd weaknesses. So we've seen that they can struggle with basic reasoning, like if Alice has 4 brothers and 1 sister,
yes.
How many sisters does Alice's brother have?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said earlier, we've seen that even though you can write almost anything in any style you like, from instruction manuals that sound like Bible verses to Nordic sagas about LinkedIn, they can't count the R's in the word strawberry. And it seems that they also struggle with some really simple maths, such as which is bigger, 9.11 or 9.9. And even an AI that can figure out that 9.9 is bigger than 9.11 might struggle with variations of the question. So Claude, for example, does know that 9.9 is bigger than 9.11, but it struggles with sorting handfuls of decimals into the right order. And this seems very odd to us because computers have been able to do quite advanced maths very reliably for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
But maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. In some ways, it's a bit of a miracle that LLMs can do any maths at all. So, as you know, large language models are large models of language. And they're trained on millions of documents, and they essentially rip those documents into tiny chunks called tokens. And the tokens are about 4 letters long.
Yep.
And then they create a statistical model of the relationships between all of those tokens. So when you ask it a question, It looks at the tokens in your question and it makes a prediction about the right answer based on the relationship between those tokens. So their ability to do maths is really an unexpected byproduct of that training. It happens that the relationships enshrined in the language model produce correct maths answers a lot of the time.
Yes.
But because they aren't programmed to do maths in the way that traditional computer programs are, they sometimes fail.
So I don't understand why it's not clever enough to know, oh, this is a maths question. Let's send this to the maths bit of my head.
Well, it's interesting you say that because sometimes they do. So one of the ways that AIs have started to solve this problem is that they will write code. So AIs are very bad at maths, but they're very, very good at writing computer code.
Yes.
And both ChatGPT and Claude will sometimes write little Python programs to solve maths problems if they identify them as maths problems.
And unlike a real Python programmer, they don't have to grow a neckbeard before doing it, right?
You don't have to listen to their opinions about which Linux distribution you should be using. Anyway, one of the reasons that they get confused is because we don't always use numbers for doing maths. We also use them in other contexts. So we use numbers to represent days, months, and years, for example. And that means that there are relationships between some numbers that have got nothing to do with maths at all, and those relationships are also embedded in the LLM and conflicting with the maths relationships.
Now version numbers. 9.11, some people would consider that a later version number than 9.9, wouldn't they?
They would, and it's funny that you should mention that because that is actually one of the leading theories for what's going on here. The problem is that we know in theory why a large language model might struggle with a question like which is bigger, 9.11 or 9.9, but it's very, very hard to know for sure because, as we discussed in episode 6, AIs like ChatGPT are black boxes, and even the people that make them don't know exactly how they work or why they produce certain answers. And that leaves us trying to work out by deduction. And one of the most popular theories is exactly what you said, software version numbers. So you wrote a computer program called Jacaranda Jim, and you probably called the first version 1. And then if you make a slight modification, you decide maybe you're going to call it 1.1.
Yeah.
And then you make another modification, you call it 1.2. And if you keep going, you get to 1.9, and then the next version is 1.10.
Well, I wouldn't have done. I just think that's stupid. I think programmers who do that are idiots.
You just went with the first number.
Yeah,
version 7,000 of Jacaranda Jim.
Well, pretty much. Or I'd go 1.91 or something, or 1.92. And eventually, if it's a good enough version, I'd think, oh, this is a really good one. I'd put out version 2.0, although inevitably within 20 minutes, I'd have to release another update, ruining everything. But I just think programmers are a bit daft if they do that. Maybe because of this reason, because I want to know, well, what is the latest version? It should be the biggest number.
But there is a whole sort of scheme for open source software, which is the 3-digit scheme, which is major version, minor version, and bug fix.
Yeah.
And so there is a sort of de facto standard across a lot of the software in the world where we use numbers and decimal points, but we don't use them in the way we would if we were doing maths.
Yes.
But the problem is all of this is speculation, so that's a good candidate for being the right answer, and lots of people have decided it is, but we don't know for sure. But now we might have a way of finding out. So do you remember back in episode 6, we didn't just talk about AIs being black boxes. I also mentioned that Anthropic had created something like a brain scanner for its AIs.
Yes.
And that could look at which clusters of neurons were activated when you ask an AI a question.
Yes, not clusters of neurons in your own brain, but the equivalent clusters in the AI brain.
Exactly. So you can think of a large language model as something like a brain, and it has something like neurons in it, and those neurons fire in clusters, and those clusters represent concepts and information. And Anthropic had built this brain scanner for itself for looking at its own models, and now another company called Transluce has created something very, very similar that works with Meta's open source Llama models. And one of the examples it chose to illustrate how its technology works was the thorny problem of why AI doesn't know that 9.9 is bigger than 9.11.
Right.
So when you ask Llama that question, Transluce's monitor program watches what Llama's doing, and it highlights clusters of neurons that influence the answer. And software versions weren't one of them.
Okay.
But the September 11th terrorist attacks were.
Because that was 9/11.
Exactly. And also Bible verses.
Oh.
Yeah, according to Transluce's Kevin Meng, Llama really likes Bible verses. And Bible verses are numbered like software. So Genesis 9:11 is the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 11. And it comes after Genesis 9:10, which comes after Genesis 9:9.
Yeah.
And like the Anthropic brain scanner, Translucid's technology can also do on-the-fly lobotomies. So you can actually knock out clusters of neurons that are affecting the answer. And it turns out if you lobotomize either the cluster of neurons about the 9/11 terrorist attacks or the cluster of neurons about Bible verses, Llama can finally tell you that 9.9 is bigger than 9.11.
Did you ever believe when you were a kid one day you would be talking about lobotomizing llamas? Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as robot dogs for the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, you may be thinking, how can I help them out? Well, you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We absolutely love that. But what really helps us is if you make sure to follow the show in your favourite podcast app so you never miss another episode. And make sure to tell your friends about it. Tell them on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Club Penguin and Bebo that you really like the AI Fix podcast.
And don't forget to check us out on our website, theaifix.show, or find us on Twitter at the AI Fix.
Until next time, from me, Graham Cluley.
And me, Mark Stockley.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins.
Why are we robot dogs? Surely we're more flies in the printer of AI.
We won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints
More of a pain in the tuttle.
a robot king, a world obscene. Will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.